Hi everyone, welcome to the Human-Centered Design UAE Meetup. My name is Jonathan Steingiesser. I'm the founder of the meetup. We started about 10 years ago. We've got a few co-organizers here with me. I'll introduce them in a second, and some amazing speakers tonight. The session is being recorded, and we have a YouTube channel with all of our past speakers, most of our past speakers. So if you've missed on a meetup, or if you have to dash out tonight, hopefully by the weekend this should be there. And you can check out some of our past speakers as well, some great videos on there. Just want to introduce Nada and Greta. Thank you, Greta, for organizing these two amazing speakers. Fellow co-organizers, there's a lot of work that's done behind the scenes. We had a really great meeting last week, the three of us, and we're planning a lot of big things, not just for the end of the year, but into next year, and we'll share more soon. We're also on Instagram and LinkedIn, so if you want to write a story or tag us tonight, please do so. You can find us quite easily, HCD UAE and Human-Centered Design UAE Meetup on LinkedIn. And I've got a surprise for all of you, something that I've wanted to do for a very long time, and the universe kind of aligned. We have partnered with a great organization in Germany. They're coming to Dubai, and we are organizing a conference in March of next year on a Saturday, so everyone can make it. And it's a collaborative event, not just somebody else coming into Dubai trying to make money and run a conference. There's going to be some great speakers from our community. There's going to be panels from our community. And we're trying to make the tickets as affordable as possible as well. So you can, it's going to be at the Sofitel, just down the road. Like I said, in March next year. You can already get tickets. There is a 20% discount code if you want to take a photo of that. The speakers and the panelists, etc., are yet to be announced, but like I said, there's some really great speakers from the community. For the first 100 tickets, it's 20% off, and it ends up being something like 500 dirham, which is quite affordable with the discount. Now, if that 500 dirham is a challenge for some of you, if you're a student, or if it's just too much, we did ask, and we do have a limited number of tickets for you, if that's a challenge. So come speak to Greta, myself, or Nada, and we'll see what we can do to help you out. And that's it. If you have more questions about the conference, happy to share. A huge thank you to ATOLYE, and I just want to pass over for you to find out about ATOLYE. Before I do, Dave and Ari, massive thanks for setting everything up. Thank you. Big clap. And welcome to ATOLYE. Really.
Thank you. Yes. Hello everyone, welcome to ATOLYE. I'm Merwe. I work as community experience here. How many of you are new here to the space? Okay, amazing. So to give you a bit of background, we're a community-powered design consultancy. So we work in architecture, service design, design thinking, UX design, human-centered design. And we're a team of 60 full-time workers and 200 plus community members. So what's unique about our consultancy is that we're community-powered. So Jonathan is one of our community members, thus we're hosting this event. So if you're interested in joining our community, and if you're in this space, definitely reach out to me, or you can find more information on our website or our social media. We're also part of Q Collective and part of these really amazing organizations, and we aim to work with economic, environmental, and cultural organizations that strive for better. And we host a lot of events here. So this is one of the many events we have, and COP28 is coming up, so we have a lot of events in the sustainability space. So if anyone's interested, definitely keep in touch with our Instagram. Yeah, if you want to take a picture of our socials or website, feel free, and I will hand it over to Jonathan.
Thank you, Greta. So without further ado, I was going to introduce you, but I'm really glad you're going to introduce yourself. We've got two amazing members of our meetup as well. Daniella, who is a lead product designer at Huspy, and Ysabella, who's a content designer in Huspy, and they're going to talk about collaborative collisions. Over to you. Dave, do you want to just switch the slides, if you don't mind, or Ari? or fingers is all it will take. Thank you. Oh, one thing I forgot. We are going to be a little bit different from past sessions where it's a lot of firing questions in the middle. We're going to run through the presentation and Greta is going to facilitate Q&A at the end of the session. So save your questions, write them down, and think about them. Over to you.
Hi guys. Please take care of this, Ysabella, I can't. So, hello everyone, good evening. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you, Jonathan, for the introduction. And yeah, today we're going to talk about collaborative collisions and how we found out the power of content and design together and how this impacts our work. So, before we start, just a little brief of what we're going to talk tonight. So, of course, we talk a little bit about us and who are we, how it was for me as a designer to work before having a content designer working with me, how we started collaborating, how we collaborate, some collisions, so when things go wrong, and finally some tips and practical tips if you don't have a content designer working with you or if you don't have like a designer working close to you. So just a little introduction about myself. I'm Daniella. I'm a product designer at Huspy here in Dubai. And I'm here for 2 years, but I'm Brazilian. And in Brazil, I worked with UX and product designer for a long time. I started as a web designer, as people like to say. And I always had this passion about design and how design can transform people's lives. I do believe in that. And another thing that I'm very passionate about, I love books. So just a fun fact about myself, I do have a YouTube channel where I do book reviews, but in the end of the day, I love storytelling and how the power of stories and the power of words can really transform people's lives and how we can put this on design. This is what it really makes me get very excited about my work.
So thanks, Dani, for the lovely introduction. I'm Ysabella Louise. I'm a UX content designer at Huspy. I am actually a third culture kid, so I grew up here in Dubai. Been here before most of everything else that you see in Sheikh Zayed Road. It's really cool to be part of like the transformation of the city, and I think it's just everything that my life has been about. So based on my nomadic experiences growing up abroad, I've always had this deep interest in like a multicultural environment, so I pursued an international business degree, so nothing to do with what I do today, but the experiences along the way kind of shaped who I wanted to be. So initially my background is in marketing, so I worked for a media agency, and that's where I encountered my love for design, starting off with graphic design, until I started understanding that there was a pathway for content, and it's actually through meeting Greta and interacting with Huspy, I landed my first job at UX content. So for those who are thinking of doing a career shift, I highly encourage it. Like, don't be afraid. Actually, when things are a bit like intimidating and scary, I think that's a good feeling to have. You're venturing out into something new. So yes, so if you want to talk about the transition, meet me after the session. I'd love to share. So while I am very new, I'm still like less than 2 years in content design, my passion fueled my eagerness to learn and continue to pursue this field. And working alongside Dani, she's always been such a motivator and encouragement. So I think this is, when we talk about what we work on this evening, you'll see like the power of like chemistry between design and content. So. And we work together on the Brokers Portal. So this evening we'll be referring a lot to our platform, which is the Brokers Portal. We work with mortgage brokers, and the portal at Huspy allows mortgage brokers to submit their cases online and track their cases with the bank. So that's the product that we'll be referring throughout the evening, and also the beginning of a beautiful love story.
Yeah, so as all of the best love stories, like all of the best novels, we have like the before. So how it was for me before you, Ysabella, before having a content designer in my life helping me to go through everything that a product designer has to do, right? So of course, like I'm referring myself as like the lone designer because I have to fight some things for myself. But especially when I got here in Dubai working at Huspy, everything was brand new, right? So I was learning about those guys. So mortgage brokers, what is a mortgage? What is the jargons that they use? What is bank rates? How it works in Dubai? So I was learning a lot with my PM, but at the same time we had to deliver things. So we were learning and discovering things while we had to deliver things. So it was very crazy because sometimes we didn't have everything that we needed about business. We got the business from the business team, but it was very hard for us to translate into experiences, to understand from the customers, from the brokers, how we could really translate this into the product. And of course, because we had to deliver things and we didn't have time, because the discovery part was taking a lot, like a huge part of the process, we couldn't see the whole flows together, and it was just like very crazy and very like, okay, we are doing while we were discovering things, and it was very chaotic. And of course, one of like our struggles was to understand how to communicate with this audience. So of course, like mortgage brokers, it's a very particular audience because they have their own ways of work, they have their own ways to communicate, their own jargons. So they talk about business, they have this bank, this financing background. So we had to learn a lot of business rules to communicate with them. And of course, like in the beginning, like me and my PM, we always felt we are like the little rascals getting to the brokers and say, hey, what do you think about this pretty UI? So it was very challenging for us to understand how to communicate and how to translate what they need into like the experiences that we were designing. So
yeah, and also keeping in mind like the banking industry here is very traditional, a lot of paperwork required, and I think that in the beginning you were trying to convince them a lot, like, how can we digitize your work process? And they're like, what we have works for us. Like, why should we change our ways? And I think that was like one of the challenges you faced initially as you were discovering.
Yeah, exactly. Because they're saying, okay, I know my work is super complex, but why it should be different? Mortgages is not something that should be simple. It should be complex because it is. So we were like really struggling how to find a way to translate their needs and also deliver something that has value in the end. And that's when everything changed because we met Ysabella.
So what happens when I joined the party? I think when I joined, the portal was, I think, a year old. So there was like still a lot to do in terms of content. I came in and I was like, there was a lot of placeholder text here and there. And that was a fun exercise when I first began. But one of the things that helped us in the way our partnership worked was having a very content-first approach from the very start. And I would say again, like, it was credit to Greta. She made like such a good onboarding experience for us. I remember when I started, she like launched like this mini challenge between the product designers and content designers on the team, and Dani and I just got to work with like a few fun activities to tick off during my first week. And one video that changed our life was this Figma video talking about how content-first design actually empowers the product experience in the end. And that just set the stage for both of us. It was like a runway for us in terms of how we collaborate together. We always, like, any project that we get, we're just involved from the very start. And even before the start, like, it's just an idea in our head and then we just talk about it.
Yeah, and also we were learning our ways because it was the first time I had a content designer to work with me, and it was the first time she was working with a product designer. So both of us, we were learning, right?
Yeah, there was like no comparison, nothing to compare to. So we were really in this discovery phase, but I think for teams that already have worked with someone in the past, any new person that joins your team, just assume it's like a blank slate. I think it helps. You need to understand the strengths and weaknesses of your partner, understand where you can meet and empower each other. I remember, so like leading on design chemistry, when I started, Dani was like, hi, I'm Dani and I really love to talk. And I'm like, this is great because I don't. So she knew my strengths and opportunities for me to improve, and we just kind of have this partnership where we, just one glance, we understand like each other very well, and I think that's just what it is actually. Like, we hear a lot of articles where content designers are looped in at the end, or like product designers don't understand what content designers do, and I think for us it's just meeting in the middle, just sharing, vibing, you know, it's not too complex. I think maybe some of you came here thinking we're going to talk technical, but really at the heart of it, it's just like understanding each other as people. And like content designers are empathizers, so I think we're really good at like just understanding each other. I don't know, Dani, if you want to add on the design chemistry part.
Yeah, I think it works very well because, of course, as Ysabella said, we learn from each other, like what is their strengths, our weakness. So I know that Ysabella doesn't like to talk that much, and I do. I talk for both of us. If you allow me, I can talk the whole night. But yeah, so we found the chemistry, but also we found how we can help each other. So I think that I'm always learning from her, and I hope you're always learning from me. So as she says, when we start working together, it's not just like you do the words and the content part and I do the Figma file. So we think about everything together. And I think it leads to the playground part because it's super fun. So we have a space, a free space, when like Ysabella can try and create her own wireframes and change the words, change the buttons, change the whole flow.
Detach.
Yeah.
Detach everything on Figma. I know Edu is a very hard advocate for this, but yeah, a playground for both of you to just let your ideas flow. It's a bit intimidating at the start. Like, I've never worked in content design before coming at Huspy, and when I saw the Figma files, I was like, these are like really good designs. Like, I feel like there's no space for me to maybe change things, and it's a bit intimidating in the beginning, but Dani gave me that freedom to explore, and you're allowed to break things, and you have a design idea, go for it, go big, and then we can scale it back down to reality. But I just have that like freedom to explore together. I think that's what happens when you can create richer product experiences when you just let go of like your inhibitions, as well as don't limit yourself to what the competitors are doing. I think we fall into that benchmarking trap. It's like, oh, this is what's working at Airbnb, and then like let's just replicate it. But maybe you have a better idea or a different approach, and that's okay.
And of course, because we have like all of these ideas flowing, we have the playgrounds, we had to put some strategy and to organize ourselves. So of course we created our own rituals, and I think this is super nice because it wasn't something that was like our managers told us to do, it was something that came from us. So let's do a weekly where every Monday we have our coffee together, so it's 11:15, like you don't have to wake super early on Monday, so just come, let's have some coffee together and let's talk. So of course we have this structure of talking about the status of things that we've done last week, what we have to do for the next week, ideas, but mostly we share and we brainstorm. And I think from this design plus content hour, the best ideas just came from having coffee together, because we just talking, Ysabella, remember that flow that I made yesterday, we tested, and one broker said it was awful. And then Ysabella could come in for another insight, and then we just share. And sometimes we even play, like we create our own wireframes. One of the times that we got crazy, we thought about using AI for creating like the magical broker inside of the portal. So we just can go crazy because that's the time when we really can collaborate together.
It's, I think, an intentional collaboration as well. Like in the day-to-day, like our calendars get booked up with so many meetings with stakeholders that you kind of lose the opportunity to just have that space to think. And I think intentionally blocking your calendar for even an hour once a week, this is once a week for us, kind of sets the tone for the rest of the week when we're working on our pitches and all our design ideas. So it can be an hour, 30 minutes, it depends on you and your partner how you would like to work.
Yeah, I think this is super important as well. I think you have to learn and understand from your partner if they are willing to do this, how they prefer. Sometimes they prefer to do something async on Slack, it's fine. You just have to find our way together, and for us it's like having coffee together. That's the time when we got the best ideas. And of course, I remember when we started having this content hour, we have like the GIF of the week, like a fun GIF or something.
Vibe check.
Yeah, so like Brazilian memes, I was like showing some things.
Yeah. So it's outside of business, you just form a bond together that just transcends out of the workplace. And I think that's why, like, when we show you the work that we've done, it's a very enriched experience because it's also a reflection of our personalities as well. And yeah, so life is not just about memes and GIFs, however you say it. We do build connections with things that we interact with on a daily basis. So it can be a pop-up that we saw on an ad or something, and I just bring it up and like, is this something we can bring to the product? Is this something that the brokers would be interested in seeing? How can we make our flow better? And we just look at what's around us, even some random tweet that we see on Twitter, and then it just sets the ball rolling on like how we can ideate.
Yeah, and I remember right in the beginning when Ysabella joined the team, I asked her, how do you prefer to work? Like, do you need meetings? Do you need we can meet twice a week? What do you think works better? And she said, yeah, let's give it a try. Let's start weekly. If we need to connect more, we can have it more. But of course, then we seated next to each other, so we just begging the whole day and laughing the whole day.
Yeah, actually, we were not sitting together. She was on the other side of the office, but I don't know, we just naturally started gravitating towards each other.
Yeah, and people were just passing through us and saying these girls are laughing all the time. Are they really working? Yeah, we were working. Yeah. But it was super fun because we created these connections, and also we had mural boards when we just put some things that inspire us, movies that we saw on the weekend that we could just talk about sometimes. So it was very fun.
Yeah, I think the way you collaborate with your designer is just natural. Don't force a system that doesn't work. Don't implement processes that don't work for either of you. And for us, it's just it was just very natural and intuitive. We didn't come into it setting the rules. It just kind of evolved as we grew to know each other. So results. So yeah, we talked a lot about having fun, but what is the business impact that we've contributed towards? So I think laughs and joy are deliverables too, remember that. So what you see on the left is a very interesting project that we've had. So it's called Into the Portal on Demand. So it's a video series, short form video content. And the rationale behind this was we were struggling to find a way to onboard new partners. And the nature of our users is they're very busy. Mortgage brokers are constantly on the phone, receiving multiple WhatsApp messages, and having to onboard them to a new platform. It was a bit daunting. They were just I don't see the value of me going through an onboarding process. So I was okay, what if we just create 60-second videos showing the core features of the portal? And navigating through our portal is quite intuitive, but we wanted to highlight certain stages. So submitting a case, tracking an application. And because I am camera shy and I don't like to talk, I was just is there a way we can do this video without having to show our faces? And a voiceover sounded so boring and very basic. And it just was an idea. So I was browsing through social media. And I think a trend now, people in the tech space or design, they love to use their memojis as avatars. And I was is there a way we can animate this to talk? And there was. So we just got to work. We just started filming ourselves. We downloaded, I don't know what we downloaded to film this together, but
it was a simple app, and then actually it was super fun because Ysabella came with this challenge, let's use memojis, and then yes, I'm on board.
Yeah, Dani's just yes. I didn't even finish my sentence. Yes.
Memojis, yes, let's do it. And then we found out it was a simple app that you could record yourself, and then I combined everything when I edited the video, and it was super fun because we were searching for the right songs, the music to go behind, and the special effects. So it was a very fun project.
Yeah, so we kind of transformed. So the original onboarding experience was a Coda doc with screenshots and some animated GIFs of the product. And then we rolled out these content series, and it was well received by our partners, and it doesn't take much of your time. And actually, we've seen people actually go back to certain videos because it kind of showed the portal, their core feature that they were actually interested in. So engagement was actually, it was very positive, and it was also an infusion of our expertise. So Dani has a YouTube channel, and she got to flex her editing skills here. So it was very fun, all around very fun.
Yeah, and I think regarding both projects, Ysabella can talk a little bit about the Apex more, but I think the main message is we had a brief to do, but because we have fun and we care, we always find a way to go beyond, and we deliver like something that is exciting for us as well.
Yeah.
So emojis, like we got very excited. Even our PM, Angela, she was super excited as well. So everyone was on board.
We also built some internal excitement, like sneak peeks and teaser trailers here and there. So if you have a product or a project that you're excited about, show that excitement. Get everyone in the company to be as excited as you, because you worked quite hard on it, and like everyone should deserve to experience the full potential of your product. Which leads us on to the next project called the Apex, which was an amazing exhibition of what happens when business, content, and design come together to create something of value to their customers. So the portal was kind of struggling with product adoption during drops in the summer months, and we struggled with seasonality. We wanted users to engage with the portal all year round, but in the summer we saw like a dramatic decline. Usually how the business would mitigate this was through ad hoc growth campaigns, like a boost in commission, but that wasn't sustainable in the long run, and we wanted people to just use the portal all year round, which led us to come up with an idea, a strategic idea of how about implementing a rewards program, a loyalty program that rewards you for every action you carry out on the portal. And that gave birth to the Apex. It was never been done before. Like as a company, there was no rewards program and we didn't know where to start. So I got into researching. We knew what our users were interested in, what they valued. So mortgage brokers, I think, are very similar to real estate agents. They're driven by commission, they're very competitive, and they love the aspirational. They love to experience like luxury and premium experiences. So that's what we wanted to offer. We created like loyalty tiers. So I think it was Platinum. So Platinum was like the pinnacle of the program, and with Platinum members can only unlock certain things like exclusive rewards. So from a content perspective, we really looked at the psyche of our users and like what would motivate them. And so that launched the Apex. And what was interesting here is we had to build a loyalty program for our portal without product really directly involved, because it happened mid-cycle, I think.
Yeah. So I love this project because we were able to test something like totally new, because as it was outside product, we didn't have engineers to help us to code. So I said, okay, let's use Framer. I can learn, and we can launch this very quickly. And when Ysabella came with the briefing and all of the things like they built together, the strategy, all of the loyalty program, I said, okay, let's do it. And she already came with the brand actually. So she already had like all the direction, the visuals that I had to follow. So it was very fun, and it was very like easy for me to build something, because I knew like what are the users wanted, what is the value in the end, the context, exactly what we wanted to convey to the brokers. So the idea is to launch something exclusive with this, that creates this excitement, and it should be a little bit different from the brand. That's why we use like neon, these galaxy feelings. So it was very clear for me as a designer what I needed to do, and in the end, and we had this challenge, okay, we have to build this without engineers.
Build a website without code. Yeah. And for those who don't know what Framer is, maybe Dani, you can explain like this amazing product.
Yeah, Framer is a no-code tool where you can like put your Figma files and you can create like landing pages and pages that really work. You can create flows. So it's a no-code platform where you can really launch websites that are really working, like responsive and everything. And because it has this connection with Figma, it was super easy. Of course, we had to do some tweaks, but also you can create interactions, you can customize everything you need. So it was easy, but at the same time I was learning something new. And then we had to do like quickly, because both of us was going to leave for vacation.
Yeah.
But it was super excited, so we were like, it's something that we really put a lot of passion.
Yes, and I think for teams that are not as equipped, like some people here in the room might think, I don't have a engineering team to support me with my designs and stuff. There are many ways to get around it, and I think it's business challenges like this that push you as well, like, okay, what's out there? What can we explore? What can we test? And we managed to get the business buy-in to fund the Framer subscription. So I think just having that, and why this project is something that's so special, I think it's because we managed to showcase the power of product design and content from a business problem that was constantly like, it was a topic all the time, every year. It's like summertime, we were receiving like drops in submissions, and then the Apex was born. So
Yeah, and the metrics, so we were giving them points to use some parts of the product, and after we launched the Apex, like the conversion from creating proposals, that's one of the features, just like we had an all-time high. It was like
yes,
big
and
numbers.
a year-on-year comparison. So last summer versus this summer, it increased by 1,000%, and it's been sustained like throughout the summer months. So it's still early stages, but the impact is seen throughout. So that's really cool. Collisions. So when things don't go as planned, I know it's probably boring. Like the stories, like it's too smooth sailing.
Yes, like, this love story is just too cheesy.
Yeah. Where's the drama? So things don't always go as planned. We've also had our ups and downs in terms of like team support and things like that. One time we had to work without a PM, and we had to like put on our PM hats as well. And I think Dani could explain a bit more about like what it was like to work without this dynamic.
Yeah, so of course, without a PM, we have to take care not only about the experience, but we have to understand business. We have to talk to stakeholders, do everything. But also, I think the most challenging part was really understand the flows and the direction that we were going. Because sometimes when business comes with like some requirements or some new things that we have to do, we as a designers probably like everyone just like to open Figma. Okay, I will design, I will draft something I already have in my mind how this flow should look like. I have some benchmarks, so I already know what I have to do. But actually what really helped us was to step back. So just step a little bit, like look at the flow, do this zoom out and see everything that we already built, then where we were going. And really look at the flows and not just like on this particular part, and talk a lot with our stakeholders. I think communication is, without communication we couldn't do anything, because we were kind of like being the owners of the whole product.
And like understanding really what is the problem that we're trying to solve. A lot of the times, because of the time constraint and like a startup atmosphere, like we gotta deliver, but maybe just pause for a second, and as a designer you are empowered to do that, to just raise your hand and be like, is this really the root cause of the problem, or is it something else entirely different? So I think that's where the value is seen as a product designer and content, is just understanding what the user is actually looking at and struggling with, versus like coming up with a solution before really getting into it. So
yeah, and I think I can give you an example what happens if you don't do this, if you don't take a look at the whole things. So once we were delivering a feature that would be super useful for the brokers, they were asking us to do it, so they could provide bank rates inside of the case submission. We built everything, front end, QA was perfect, and in the end, when we were about to deliver, we figured out that the CRM part was missing. So where the data is going to nowhere, to the sky. So basically we wasted like weeks of development, of design, building something that in the end wouldn't bring value for the business and it wouldn't be used for the brokers.
because of oversight.
Exactly. So I think doing this step outside, taking a look at the whole process, and not just what happens in your product, but what happens in the company with business, ops, operations. So this is super important, and this will help you as well to think creatively. I know that it's kind of like obvious, we have to think outside the box, but outside the box mean just stop being too, because sometimes we get too immersed in our own things that it's hard for us to think in something different, and sometimes it's just like a detail that can help you like to avoid or prevent these issues.
Yeah, and I think one of the struggles we have, like in general, industry-wise, like what is the value that you're bringing as a content designer? And personally for me, it's like my initial response to be very defensive is like, you still don't know what I do? Like I've been here for a year, like, but it's like, maybe step outside of your comfort zone, like stop hanging out with the design squad and like move on to business ops, see what they do, ask them like what their day-to-day is like, and then it can give you insights of like, oh, maybe product can help in this certain flow or whatever it is. So like, you know, spread your wings around the company, build relationships. I think relationship building helps with the buy-in. Like, you don't have to convince people in the meeting room all the time. It happens during coffee, in the hallways, just like natural interactions, which is why we call it collaborative collisions. You know, multiple stakeholders are orbiting through different like areas of the business, but it's like in these collisions, that's where your value starts seeping through. So don't be afraid of that.
Yeah, and sometimes when we were working in a company, it's easy for some stakeholders that don't understand like what we do as designers, what user experience means, and sometimes they just say, okay, but by the end of the day we need to earn money, so it doesn't matter how the experience will look like. But then when we come with like users feedback, when we come with numbers and we kind of like show the results of our work. So remember when we created the Apex, the conversion really like got higher. So that's the thing, by the end of the day, we're creating something for these users. If they are using the product, so we are successful.
Yeah. You are the advocate of the user, like remember that over everything else. So yeah, we never stop caring, even when working solo. Like, if you strip off all your resources and whatever, I think for me it's like I am the advocate of our user, and people internally know us, like we will die for our brokers. Like, we just defend like our users, and even if you're just like the decision is so different from what you wanted it to be, at least you managed to defend it during the time that it was needed, and whatever the outcome is, you've done your job in like advocating for them.
Yeah, I think this is the main takeaway, like not just like since we started working together, but working with design as a whole, because if you care, if you're building something that you believe that will really help the person that will use your customers, I think even when things go wrong, at least you know that you tried your best and you were building something that in the end will help someone.
Yeah, you win some, you lose some, you know?
Yeah.
So, practical tips. Okay, so we're gonna go. Okay, so Dani, any practical tips for people in the room?
Of course. So I think one of the most valuable practical tips that I have since I started working with Ysabella is that we set our own structure. So it was very easy for us to collaborate. By the end of like the week, we had some things done. So when we were preparing this presentation, we went to Starbucks, like just to think about like, what we're going to talk, how would be like the structure of the presentation. But because we know each other, we know how we work, everything went so fast. We just like thought of everything, we followed all of the ideas that we have. So I think when you're working with someone you have to get to know them, understand like how you can set a structure that will help you both to collaborate. And if you're on your own, like if you're solo or if you don't have a partner to work with very close, set your own structure for yourself. So by the end of the day, you know exactly what you have to do, what you're trying to solve, and if you have any blockers or any issues, you know where you have to act.
And then connecting to that is also sharing your work with each other, sharing your work across the company, and sharing your work outside. Like LinkedIn is such a great opportunity, and also coming to places like this, like HCD, and connecting with people around you. We're a growing community, like it's content design is something fairly new here, but I think there's a lot of potential to just connect together and learn from each other in that process.
100%. I think the more you share, the better, like more insights you have, more ideas you have, the better you get with your work. Because of course, if you're going to design for yourself, like how you can improve, right? So sharing is caring.
Yes, and then also finding a mentor that someone you can learn from and someone that can encourage you in your growth. If you're not able to find this within your company, you can like reach out to groups such as this, and as well as I always like to say, if you're the smartest in the room, you're in the wrong room. Like you're stagnating in your craft. So take a risk, find someone that you can just have a coffee with, very casual. 99% of the people I've asked to be my mentor have never said no, so don't be afraid to ask anyone.
Yeah, and I think also like when we think about learning from each other, this is so important because as I said in the beginning, when I'm working, I always learn from someone else. Like I always get something and I can always share something. So yeah, just be open to learn from the person that is working with you. You can always learn something new.
And the last one is connect with other teams. As I said, branch out a bit from what you know, and then don't be afraid to learn from others in your company, and also online as well. There's lots. I like to connect on the Reddit subreddits of UX writing, content design. There's a lot of these forums online and in real life. So we live in a digitized world. There's a lot of resources out there, and I think it's through connections that enrich the overall product experience when you broaden your horizons.
Yeah, and I think this is a good tip, especially if you're not working in a company, because of course if you're a designer, sometimes you have a team, you have design critiques, you're already sharing with your other designers, partners. But when you're a freelancer, or if you don't have a team that you can share, try to share even with your marketing colleagues or people from sales. You never know the kind of insights they can have and the benchmarks that they can help you. So it's very interesting when you show something to someone that is outside of the context, because they can bring a new perspective. Yeah, and of course avoid to do things for yourself, and what we're calling echo chambers. They're just you doing your design, and then you'll say, yeah, this is fine, I'm amazing. Always share and do critiques. Of course, you're not the fairest critic that there is. You need to share, and you need to learn.
Yeah, and to be open to feedback. It's not always gonna be a pat on the back, and maybe it's that kind of feedback that would enrich the product experience. So at the end of the day, it's not necessarily a critique of you as a person, but maybe how can we optimize the product experience to X, Y, Z? So avoiding echo chambers is one important way to elevate the process. The product.
Yeah, and I think the main takeaway that we wanted you guys to take home is something that might seem obvious, but it's not. Products is not the hero of your story, of this love story. The customer experience is. So we connected very well together, because we know by the end of the day what we wanted to deliver. We wanted to deliver something that is meaningful, that will help our customers, and we have the same goal, we have the same direction. So that's why we were working well.
Yeah, so for example, we don't always have to agree on everything, but at the end of the day, it's what's the best design decision for our user? And I think that's been our North Star ever since. So consumer experience is the hero of this story. So thank you so much for listening and coming out tonight. This is really fun. And because you came all this way, feel free to scan to view our design toolkit. It's just a cool Notion file of things we find interesting, inspiring, and if you have something cool to share, our LinkedIn is also in there, so feel free to share that with us. We love finding cool corners of the internet all the time. So
thank you so much for coming. Yeah, it was fun. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much. It was amazing. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Greta. I've been working as a content designer, UX writer in Dubai since 2017. So this is obviously a topic very close to my heart, and it's so amazing to see how far it's come as well, to have it embedded in teams. Just by show of hands, how many questions do we have? A few, okay. I'm gonna start, but I have a spicy one to start with. So it's amazing that you guys get along so well and you kind of overlap and collaborate in a great way, but it could also seem like you're just two designers working together. It could seem like the design team is a bit bulky. How do you differentiate the skill sets and why you need both on the team?
Start?
Sure. I think it depends really on the nature of the business. How mature is the design team in the company, and what is the actual need for the design team and certain divisions of design. People might say probably Dani is able to write copy, she's very good in English, and Ysabella can design a few wireframes. But I think it all boils down to breadth and depth. And yes, we do have overlaps, but we do also have our specializations as well. And you can, as a designer, like branch out and learn UX research, content design. But for me, it's like I'm more focused on content strategy, and this is where the value, like as a company, gets from me is in this field. And I think it's the same for Dani as well.
Yeah, 100%. I think product designers, we are generalists, so we know how to deal with words. We are building something. We are not just putting lorem ipsum on things, of course, but like the set of skills that a content designer has is much more specialized, and not just the words itself, but like the whole flow. And that's what we were struggling in the beginning at Huspy, because we were like missing a lot of parts, because we didn't have time and we didn't have the skill, like someone to really go to translate the business context, and especially the customer context, because we as designers, we are doing so many things at the same time. We are focusing on the visual part, we're focusing on the interactions part, and we needed someone to really help us with this content approach. And of course, I think for maybe here in Dubai it's something as well, like the language. So for me, Ysabella, thank you saying that my English is good, but yeah, sometimes I do struggle like with CTAs. What is the best term that I could use here? Am I using the right terms in the whole flows? Like sometimes I calling start here, and then there I'm going to next. So what is the consistency? So she's the one that really sees the whole flows and making sure that we are communicating well with our customers.
So to that point, like the customers, you guys touched a lot on your ability to speak the broker's language. So I'm assuming you also had a lot of access to brokers, to your users. What about people here who don't necessarily have, because brokers in Dubai are, it's a nice small amount. I think there's like how many, 500 or 500 users in Dubai. So getting access to them is quite easy. And learning their language. What about people who have way broader user groups? Where do they even start?
It's a good question. I think I can answer about my research experience. So of course, we can always start small with benchmarks. We can always start with marketing studies, knowing our audience. So sometimes the company already have something, like they already know their public, their audience, who we are building for. But of course, I think we need to always question more and do research. The more we have, the more we can. So I remember a time in a consultancy, we didn't have like access to users, so we created like surveys on Facebook, we created things on Twitter, we're just trying to reach people on social media because we didn't have access to this particular part of users. But of course, I think we are privileged because we have access to the brokers, but it's super important to get to know your audience and talk to them.
Yeah, community engagement and field work, you know, like who are you trying to reach? So maybe if it involves just like going to their offices and just asking them like, what do you think about this screen? Or you can do there are guerrilla tactics, and as I said, I'm very much active on Reddit, and there's a lot of information. These forums are like, you're just meeting the people where they are. So go to these focus subreddits of whatever niche audience you're targeting, and you'll see there's a lot of people there, and then it's anonymous, so you will get like unbiased. I mean, not all the time, but yeah, that's one way to reach out to people if you don't have access to research.
Yeah, Reddit is a gold mine for conversation mining and seeing the words people use. One more question for.
I just had a good segue to that one. Quick one. Sorry. I was curious about research and service design. You brushed on it. You didn't really go deep. Do you have a researcher? Do you have a service designer? How does research and service design work into your process? That's kind of like the first part of the question.
Okay, it's a good question. We do have a UX researcher at Huspy, and she's now in Madrid because we work here in Dubai and Madrid, but she helps all of the teams with researchers that are very well defined. So let's say I have to do a user test, I have to put something on user Zoom, I have to understand like the agents that are in Spain. So she's the one that is responsible for all of the researches that we have to do, especially when we are talking about like this qualitative research. But in product, so me as a product designer, I talk to the brokers all the time because they're there with me, and me and my PM, we do the continuous discovery every time. But if you need something bigger, we can use our UX researcher to help us. And as service designer, we don't have this role at Huspy, so all of us, we kind of do the same.
But how does that work within your flow, your rituals as a... how does research integrate into your process?
Of course. So at Huspy now we work in the 6-cycle methodology. So basically when we have a feature, we slice it in a way that we can deliver in 6 weeks, and by the end of each week we have something deliverable in the product. So when we are planning the cycles, we already have something that we know that we have to discover. So that's when we talk to our researcher Lucia and say, Lucia, business came with this problem, we don't know anything about it, we need a discovery. What is the best strategy that you can tell us? And she can say, oh, Dani, for this particular case, I think a focus group could work. Or actually, I don't believe in focus group as well. I just bought it, but yeah, I don't believe in focus group as well. But yeah, so she can come with the right methodology or the right approach for this particular problem, and then we discuss together. And if it's something that like I could do myself, so it's just like a quick survey or a quick user test that I can do with my brokers, I just go. And if it's something bigger, she's the one. So basically, we plan the things together in the beginning of each cycle.
And like the research results actually build the case for our pitches. So because of the 6-week cycle, we need to provide rationale for why we're like designing the way we do, and user-centric insights are always like the best pitch for business. Like why this, why that? Well, this is what they require, and this is how they feel about a certain feature.
Cool. Final question, and then if there's more in the audience. You guys have the luxury of time. You've been hanging out for a while. You know each other in and out, what makes you tick, which GIF makes you laugh. What about people who don't have a UX writer or content designer in the team, and maybe their partnerships are more temporary, right? So maybe it's the copywriter in-house, or the marketing person, or a freelance writer. Do you have any tips for building trust in that way, in shorter relationships?
I think living in Dubai, everyone is just in this transient mode, and I think like Dani could leave within 3 months or whatever. So I think the length of time you spend with someone, I think, is not really like a main concern. It's more of like, how do you meet each other in the middle? How do you get to know each other? How do you build the bond, whether if it's like for a week or 2 weeks, and the things that we've shared you can do it on a lower scale. Like, yes, we have the luxury of time, but there's nothing wrong with having coffee with someone and just spending time like, okay, for the next 3 weeks, this is how we can work and approach this project. How do you feel about it? How would you approach this? How would you like to work together? So just asking them.
Yeah, and I really appreciate that because it doesn't show, but I'm a little bit introspective. So sometimes I feel shy, and it takes a lot of energy to get to know new people. So if someone comes at me and say, hey, how do you prefer to work? Like, can I reach you? Like, do you prefer a coffee, or do you want to have like just a hangouts on Google Meets? It's fine. So I think I really appreciate when people ask you how you would like to work, and then that's when you find this middle ground.
I also remember Henny's README document. So for people that worked outside of her team and didn't really know her well, she just like sent it to them, and it helps like, you know, get to know the person well and how they work. So if you don't open your Slack after 6, like, important to write that down. So having like this mini booklet to share with people, and you can just constantly reshare that with the team that you're going to interact with. So
I find it really hard to answer that question. How would you like to work? Efficiently. So it's good that you have the answers for those. Do we have questions from you guys? Tell everyone your name and your question.
Hi, I'm Becky. For new content designers or UX copywriters joining a company, what would you say they should do first to be most helpful, but also advocate for content within their role?
I think for me at the very beginning was just constantly booking meetings with the people that I'm going to be potentially working with. So just learn what the business does, what are the requirements, what are they struggling with, the opportunities. It may not necessarily translate into content on a day-to-day, but it gives you like a context of like the state of the company that you're joining. And then as a content designer, when I first started, I like to see what was already existing. So the screens, the flows, and do like mini edits, and that's when you can touch base with your designer and start asking like, oh, why do we refer to this button as such? And then she'll give you context like, well, this is how the user perceives things. And I think for me, starting off with the B2B platform, I was shocked, like the process is so complex, why? And then the brokers love complexity, so we've designed it to meet like their rationale. So I think just ask your stakeholders, get to know them, and then you kind of like start finding your own way, like as you learn. So
Thank you.
I think our biggest strength as content designers is listening, not necessarily writing. Any other questions? Not so far. Tell us your name and your question.
Hi, I'm Pankaj. Thank you so much. It was very good to listen to both sides of stories. Now, my question is, basically, you both are creative people, and there's a similar fabric on which everything is built, right? You are a startup. You see from quick and let's do it kind of perspective. But when it comes to big organizations, there are multiple teams involved in any product design. Especially, there are product managers who are doing it for a few years, and they have a certain way of doing it. And sitting over a coffee break and discussing things are not seen really seriously in that culture. And sometimes it happens, like the topic is collaborative collisions. There is collision and there is no collaboration happening. It's happening. So how do we do it? Because it looks like you guys clicked and you found a way to build upon that relationship, and the end result is based on your relationship. What happens if it's a big team? There are many content writers, content UX content people involved, designers from different schools of thought. How do we build that understanding, that collaboration first, and then collision is welcome but not celebrated initially?
Actually, I think this is a great question, because I think this is the scenario, like the most common scenario. Unfortunately, not everyone has this privilege of work with someone that really clicked from the beginning. But I think what always helps is one of the practical tips of sharing your work. Maybe people wouldn't seem like interested in like, oh, okay, like this flow, blah, blah, blah. But when you share, and when you ask for feedback, and when you are showing your work, I think people get to be more involved. And this is very important, so involve people since the beginning. So if you're starting something, involve the stakeholders, involve marketing teams. Even if they have busy calendars, at least you are there saying, guys, we need like everyone to be onboarded, otherwise we're just building this by ourselves. So when I worked on a consultancy in Brazil, I was working in a product that was the same, so it's a quick pace, like the POs didn't have time to look and say, design, it's not like important. But then we created a newsletter with insights about our users. So in the end of the week, we have like cool user test results, just sharing like nice things we found out in the product. So good feedback, bad feedback, like, okay, this could be the next thing. So I think involving people more to get there like onboarded, it's a good way to start, at least.
I think to add to that, find the language that they speak in. So some people are very numbers driven, and that's something that we've had to face with. Like, not everyone is visually like they're not interested in that. So for like strategy teams and growth teams, they just want to see the numbers. So for us, showing that like product adoption rate has like improved by 1,000%, they're like, this is cool. Like, okay, what's next? So find the language that they speak in and learn to speak that language, and maybe they'll see the value and less collisions and more collaboration.
Yeah, I think I can also add, firstly, stop fighting with your colleagues. And second, remember what they said about who the hero is of the whole experience, right? It's the customer. So I think if you can always come to the table with that, like, this is what the customer wants, it really doesn't matter what we're fighting over. Who else?
Amen.
I'm coming.
Okay, I'm not very visible. Hi, myself Binsi. So I am coming from a company. I'm actually a product lead for the company. So we don't have this, actually the question is for her, the content strategist or UX writer kind of a domain or a name in our organization. So if I want to onboard someone, we have copywriters, we have marketing people, we give the designs and we give the placeholders and we share it with them and they will copyright us. So if I want to onboard someone like you, a content strategist or a UX writer, how I can approach my board? Like, what are the KPIs you think you can give? Because we have KPIs, which conversion and a lot of scalability. So on your footing, what do you think, what are the KPIs I can put in front of the board, which will give a value to my product?
So just to clarify the question, so KPIs from a content perspective, like
From the content perspective, so I want to onboard a person, a content strategist to my product team or my company. So we have a copywriter, so I have to show them what's the difference between or what value a content strategist can give irrespective of the copywriter.
okay.
So what, from your perspective, I'm just asking
Yes.
how I can put or how I can show that to my board.
I think a content strategist's contribution or the value that we add to any product is how is a user journey frictionless as possible? Is it how do they interact with the interfaces? Are they able to understand what they need to do and where they need to go next? And that's with the language and then the design of that. So as a content strategist, what I would say is how I bring value is I kind of learn what the user needs. And I think a copywriter is just, they need to know what they need to fill in, like fill in the blanks. But for me, it's not that. It's, okay, how can we improve this design to be able to make them go to the full flow from A to Z seamlessly. So I think that's the difference. Like we kind of have a bird's eye view of the whole flow and the process, and it's not just screen by screen and like filling in the blanks. Like I think that's the core differentiation between the two.
Sorry, Greta. I couldn't help it. I just wanted to add one more thing, which I think is done really poorly, not just here, but in most organizations, in most countries, and that's data. If you can capture and measure the experience, then you can justify the content design, the product design. But if you're not capturing, or if you're capturing it and you work in such a large organization where you can't get a hold of the person who's captured it and even the quality of it is poor, like a lot of us, then it's very hard to come in and say the customer experience justifies having it because you're not measuring anything and it becomes an opinion or an argument. But I think it boils down to, like you said, the KPI, the data. So ideally you would benchmark and understand, thinking of your need for this flow, how would you rate it? And then you can show, look, when we work on the content, look how much we've improved things. And we haven't even touched design or code, just the words alone. So I think you're very fortunate and organizations Greta worked in, because most organizations that I've been in here or in other places don't have a content designer or content strategist.
And I kind of think the hint is in the name, strategist. Speaking to the measurement as well, you need to understand what you're going to measure, right? So taking your business goals, what are probable content solutions or content objectives that can meet those business goals, and then what do we measure metrics inside those content objectives. Those content objectives or whatever that may be, that is what the copywriter writes then. So how will you know if whatever the copywriter creates is effective if you don't measure it, if it's not based in a strategy, it's not all aligned in the same strategy. So I think that's also a difference.
Let's say, working for the buy iPhones, for example, and then, you have to, create more other products to enhance maybe traffic or something. So how would you then bring in content strategist? Is that relevant? And then make that data. That's my question. Forget the buy iPhones. Any example, forget the buy iPhones. Any example of what is basic content strategist and how would you measure that data? So I did an example.
How do you know if you're successful?
So I think Greta touched upon it, whether the objective. So let's say like a simple process, a sign-up flow. So how many users are able to complete the process without any friction? And we do have like Hotjar to track like where people are rage clicking or dropping off, and then so the conversion rate of like completing that process is one key metric you can observe and see where like the confusion is, and is it the copy, is it the flow, is it the buttons, is it the interaction? So there's a lot, and we also have tools like Amplitude and Hotjar that translate their interactions into numbers that you can see. So,
and just to add, I think it's super important to cross all of this data. So you have like the numbers on Amplitude, and then you saw like a drop on the flow, then you open Hotjar and you see sometimes you can find some very interesting things. It already happened in our portal, so we figured out that the brokers, they were not understanding the CTA that they had to click, so they were just getting frustrated because the click was able just after they do another task. So we were not understanding what was happening when we saw the numbers on Amplitude, and then when we saw Hotjar, and when we talked to some brokers, of course, talking to them and understanding and making interviews, we understand, oh, okay, so the flow actually it's hard for them. They're not getting the content, they're not getting like what they have to do, the task. So crossing all of the data is very important.
Basic CES scores, like how easy was this process, was this flow for you, rate it, and then you can see, and then you take it back to the drawing board and see like, okay, is it a design flaw, is it the language, the messaging, are they able to understand what they have to do, when they have to do it? So yeah, it's just a constant iteration process.
So you can use the quantitative numbers, like they saw the red heat map on Hotjar, like there are 300 clicks here, why? And then the qualitative user test to understand why did that happen. And also, I think maybe something like taking a snapshot of activity or metrics or as it is before you redesign the content, and have a hypothesis, right? So people are not signing up, I don't know why. Let's take the numbers as they are, and our hypothesis is if we change the onboarding flow, they'll sign up more, and then you measure those. Okay, last question. If you were to give advice to people in the room, but Dani, a piece of advice to content designers, like what is the single most useful thing they can do to connect with their product designer early on? And then Ysabella, for the product designers, what's a useful thing they can do to connect with their content designers?
Okay, it's an amazing question. I think if I had like someone new coming to my team right now, I want them to ask me, what is this product about? Tell me this story. What you're doing, what is the purpose of this product? Not just show me the flows, but I think if they are eager to understand the purpose, what we are doing, because we are doing, like what is the goal. And I think this is super important because they're showing interest, but of course they're trying to understand the core. And I think this is super important for content designers because like what Ysabella does at Huspy is not just looking at the words, but she's really understanding the business and translating this. So this really helped me. So I think as a new content designer, just approach me and say, Dani, tell me everything about the product. Tell me a story, let's talk. I think it would be amazing.
I think for me, if I was to onboard a new product designer, it's just ask them like, what do you think I do? And then and then see, like, start the conversation from there.
Start with a fight.
No. Start with a little of collision, but then it's like you understand, okay, this person perceives me as doing X, Y, and Z, and then kind of reframe their mindset and be like, I can help you with that, but here's something else I can do. So yeah.
Nice. That's it from me. I think take them up on their offer of coming to talk to them afterwards. They have a wealth of knowledge, obviously, about collaboration. And thank you all so much.